You're listening to the RCWR Show, Weekend Edition, with your host, Lee Sanders. On a beautiful Saturday afternoon, you're checking out a very special edition of the RCWR Show, Weekend Edition. I'm your host, the Black Avenger, Lee Sanders. I am joined by the beautiful and the lovely Tammy. We are here to talk about the new Superman Man of Steel movie given to us by the one and only Warner Brothers. And what better way to talk about that latest installment than being here on location at the Rio, one of my favorite places to go to when it comes to checking out movies in the Gaithersburg, Maryland area. Got to tell you guys, it has a really beautiful scenery. I mean, you could just do just about anything over here aside from movies. You feel like maybe kicking back and grabbing a bite to eat, take your pick. They've got American, they've got seafood, they've got Italian, you name it, they have it over here. Another thing you can do, which I think is pretty awesome, and I actually ended up doing it, I think last year it was to rent a boat, and you can just go out and just enjoy the lake. Of course, you have a little bit of company as you are enjoying a nice boat ride, as there are gooses and ducks just looking at you kind of like, why are you in my area? Get on up out of here. But I always enjoy coming down here to check out the great scenery, of course, the great movies here, and great atmosphere, great crowd. And without any further ado, let's go on ahead and let's talk about this movie. You know, I am a definite hardcore comic buff, and I love of all my favorite DC comic characters, Tammy. I love Superman. He's tied with Batman, but I kind of got to give the edge a little bit more to Superman. And I must admit, I was a little bit on the fence about this movie when I had first heard that they were going to try to take another crack at this, because let's not forget the bitter taste that was left in our mouths and a lot of comic book fans' mouths with the Superman Returns movie, which the star of that was Brandon Routh, I believe it was, and it was directed by the same guy that did the X-Men movies. I can't think of his name right now. It'll come to me when I least expect it. Those of you that probably going to be bashing me for forgetting the name, forgive me, but I know he had a huge take in what was going on with the first, I want to say, 2 X-Men movies. He didn't direct the third one, as he wanted to jump on board to do Superman Returns, and that movie alone, it left a bitter taste in some of our mouths because it seemed too much like they were trying to do a hardcore copycat of the first Superman movie, you know, with Christopher Reeve. And I know you actually had liked that movie, right?
Yeah, I actually did particularly care for the Superman Returns. I actually found it kind of sweet. But I do certainly get where you're coming from as far as the reboot type with Superman.
Right, and not to mention how many times we've seen the Superman Lex Luthor characters recycled. You know, it's just that whole, I don't know about you, but when I hear an origin and I see the same cast so many times, it's kind of like, okay, can we come up with something original? And when we first heard that this new Man of Steel movie was in development, the first thing I said to myself was okay, well, who exactly are we going to get to be Superman this time around? And when I heard the news that Brandon Routh didn't get the job, I actually applauded that move, because I actually thought his portrayal was just a little bit too weak. I thought he looked pretty good as a Clark Kent, but I wasn't exactly sold on the Superman. And lo and behold, we get this movie, and we're thinking about the huge success that the Dark Knight trilogy had with Christopher Nolan. We're wondering what exactly was going to happen with the Superman franchise, since now it looks like they've put a halt on Batman. They're focusing on Superman again. And first thing we're saying to ourselves is, well, are the Nolan brothers going to be involved in this latest installment? They have to be involved
to some level with this new Superman reboot. And although we didn't get Christopher Nolan as the director, we would get him as the producer. We would get him as, I believe, one of the co-writers for this Man of Steel movie. But he would not be the one to direct this. It would actually be Zack Snyder, famous for giving us Gerard Butler in 300, which, by the way, there is going to be a sequel of that coming out later this year. Visually, let's just talk about Man of Steel. Visually, Tammy, how did it feel? How was it for you to check it out? Because I know we were checking it out in IMAX 3D.
Right. For me, visually, certainly a wow. I even found at certain times in the movie, my jaw, excuse me, was just dropping because it was like, whoa, you just, between the 3D and the actual visual effects that are already in the movie, it certainly draws you in.
Yeah, I agree to that 100%. And for those of you that are getting ready to see this movie, I definitely would highly encourage you guys to check it out in IMAX 3D. That's really the best way to truly get an overall great experience of this movie. It's well worth it. I will say this, if you can be a morning person, as our day had begun very early, we ended up seeing this movie at 9:45 a.m., just to try to dodge the paying double for ticket prices. I definitely would highly recommend that you do that if you can be a morning person and see this, as you get the right type of crowd, I feel, when you check out a movie early Saturday morning. If you don't want to deal with the little kids and the babies crying, and you're trying to enjoy a movie that is going to be geared towards adults, and which is exactly what this Man of Steel movie was all about. You're not going to find any of that slapstick comedy from the Richard Donner Superman movies, or even after he left. You're not going to find that. This is definitely geared towards those, in my honest opinion, that grew up watching all of those Superman movies. Because one thing that you had observed, which I think it should be noted, is the age demographics for who all was at that movie with us. I mean, you had folks that looked like they were at least as old as 70 that were checking it out.
Yeah, definitely 60s and 70s.
Yeah, and as young as maybe, I would say
teenagers, 15, 16, 17.
Yeah.
So what a span of age is, that just truly speaks to, what kind of effect that this movie has, and will continue to have, because we are certainly just in the opening weekend of this movie coming out. So,
opening weekend, and Saturday is not even in the books yet, and it was already reported as early as 2 hours ago that for Friday's total gross of Man of Steel, they've already racked in $56 million.
Right, and that's a certain wow. So you can only imagine what's gonna come of, today and tomorrow, because droves of people are going to come to see this movie. It has been promoted, and actually, to be honest, when we left, there were droves of people waiting to get in line to see the next showing. So I can imagine that this is going to blow up.
Movie that damn good that before it was even released in theaters, they already gave a green light for a sequel. That's how much of an impact this new Man of Steel movie has been on a lot of people, those that were able to check this out weeks before. It's just a phenomenon. This time around, for those of you that are a little bit curious, we find that the story gets a new, what I feel is a revamped interpretation. You just think
Very
about
revamped.
you think about the Richard Donner years and all that, and you think about the last Superman movie, and they were pretty much recycling the whole thing. This time around, things kick off with us having a better understanding of just where exactly Superman, aka Kal-El, came from. And we see what's going on with his world on Krypton with his parents. Of course, the great actor Russell Crowe, who's playing the father, Jor-El. And for me personally, I was just really taken in by Jor-El the moment he came onto the screen. And Tammy, I don't know if you had picked up that same vibe, but I couldn't help but kind of take a side note and say, how badass this is this? We have the Gladiator, who was also in American Gangsters with Denzel Washington, a guy that just has a great track record of being involved in some of the greatest movies in cinema. Here he is loaning his talents to this new reboot. And he is playing the father of all fathers, the father of Superman.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. That is pretty impressive.
Yeah. This time around, we see what's going on with the planet of Krypton. We're introduced to these exotic creatures. We're introduced to their technology, which kind of reminded me of metallic sand, the way that they were operating with their unique alien machinery. And of course, the planet, it's weeks away from being destroyed. They've basically tapped into all of its resources, and this is kind of their own downfall, as he's been preaching to the council that unless they take the necessary precautions to evacuate the planet, that their race as they know it will cease to exist. And the council kind of gave me the impression that maybe they were going to cast their vote in favor of siding with Jor-El and basically taking whatever Kryptonians they could, the next generation, and send them to another planet where they can survive, because that's the backstory of the Kryptonians, is that they are basically, in a sense, what's the word I'm looking for? Not necessarily world travelers. They go on these expeditions, if you will, and they're basically searching for new planets. And the way that they're going about these new planets, it seems like there isn't life on these planets, and basically they're just looking for a way to expand their knowledge, expand their people. That's basically it, expanding their race. But they got so content on what they were able to gain over the years, that they got to a point where they no longer felt it was necessary to go on these expeditions. And that was pretty much in the end their downfall. But as all this is going on, Jor-El's wife gives birth to Kal-El, and this is the first birth that has happened in, like, I believe they said like 100,000 years or something like that.
Yeah, natural birth.
Right, a natural birth.
Artificial. And moviegoers, this is something that you'll find out in the movie, but this is their first natural birth, and thus sort of the important one, as they feel.
Exactly. And as Jor-El is breaking the news to the council on what they need to do and everything, we do see the council get attacked by General Zod and his people. And they've pretty much are saying, look, it's not going down like this. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that our people survive. We're not going to be lost on this planet. That's your take of Zod early on. As soon as you meet this guy, he has one agenda only. It's all about saving his race. And for me, I respect the hell out of that, although I didn't like the way he went about this strategy. But, and then from there, we pretty much kind of do like a back and forth throughout the whole movie. We check in on Kal-El, a.k.a. Superman, at the present, and then we see little bits of pieces of what it was like for him growing up. I definitely would like to get your take on what you thought about Kevin Costner, Diane Lane as Superman's parents. We've seen that interpretation done so many times, especially on the Lois and Clark, New Adventures of Superman. We've seen the parents reintroduced so many times What was your take this time around on the parents compared to how they were portrayed in the previous movies?
For me, there was, I guess, overall, in general, I really appreciated the view of the parents and kind of not bombarding us with the parents, but certainly just kind of giving us tidbits. There's one really standout scene for me in the movie with the dad, which you guys will see, but just just kind of summarizing up, what they meant to him and kind of what their perspective was on this man that they have, or boy, child, whichever stage you're looking at. But yeah, I think it was just enough. I don't think they overdid it as far as the parents. But I think it was just enough, and there was some really powerful moments with interactions with his parents in this movie.
Great interaction. Yeah, great interaction. And the timing was perfect. It wasn't a case like, well, because we got Kevin Costner and Diane Lane, they need to get in their camera time, because they too, in their respected eras, they were big movie stars. So yeah, they need to get in their face. It wasn't like that at all, and that was probably the main thing that had jumped out at me throughout this whole movie. When you think about the all-star cast in this movie, and let's not forget, and we got to give him props, Lawrence Fishburne plays the black version of Perry White, editor of the Daily Planet, yet my man still finds a way to get one of his ears pierced as he has to push one stud on his ear. I mean,
he's cool.
I know he's cool. He's cool. I'll give him that. He's Lawrence Fishburne. He can pretty much do whatever. The name speaks for itself. But I mean, even you have him in this movie, and it's not a case where it's about, well, hell, I'm Lawrence Fishburne. I was involved in the Matrix trilogy. I've got to get my face time. There was no sense of an ego thing.
There wasn't at all. Everybody got their own sense of their time and when it needed to be. It was very evenly spaced throughout this all-star cast.
Yeah. And, of course, the writers, the Nolan brothers, they stuck to that core storyline of Superman. What it was like on his planet, what it was like for his parents, what it was like for his fellow Kryptonians. And then coming to the planet Earth, and then Zod, him and his people, they got sent to the Phantom Zone for killing the council members and all that. I think they got sent to 300 cycles, but since the planet
kind of short-lived, but
it was very short-lived, because since the planet Krypton had got destroyed, their sentence automatically was suspended. And Zod had vowed, once he had found out that there was another Kryptonian, and it was Kal-El, that he was going to do everything in his power to find him. And Zod would eventually find him, as it would be a beacon that Superman would discover from his father during his younger years, as he wanted to know just exactly where he was, where did he come from, and that had pretty much sent him on his journey to eventually put on the suit. I don't want to give too much away, but this time around, of course, we were talking about Zod, and for those of you that remember Zod from Superman 2, y'all are probably kicking back and you're wondering, well, how is Zod this time around? And, I don't have the actor's name in front of me, but the thing that I had loved most about Zod was just the fresh take on him. For those of you that saw Superman 2, you remember there was a trio. And in a sense, we did kind of get that trio from the Phantom Zone, as as we saw, as we saw the Kryptonian woman. I can't remember her name. I want to say her name was Aurora or Laura. And then there was this big, massive creature that was in armor, who was just dominating the hell on Superman there. But I don't want to give too much away. Let's try to bring it home now. I would definitely have to say, as far as visual effects go, visually,
A 10.
yeah.
A 10. There's no other. If the scale went higher, it would be an 11. But it is certainly a 10. The visual effects were, something. It's been a good minute since you've really seen something like this, and just the fresh take on even some of their fighting scenes. It's like, whoa.
Let's talk about those fighting scenes. Those fighting scenes, if you're a comic book fan, longtime comic book fan, the fighting scenes that play out in this movie, you think that you're only going to be able to see them in the comic books. But they really went all balls out for the visual effects in this movie. You literally got what you see in the comic books. I mean, the fighting that was just going on many times, especially between Superman and Zod, I mean, breathtaking. Just in your face.
Jaw-dropping.
Yeah, very jaw-dropping. And my hats just go off to the visual effects team for this movie, because let me tell you something. If this movie does not get a nomination for its visual effects, I don't know what the hell Hollywood and crew are smoking, because visually, this is one of those movies you have to put it in for a nomination.
I would think so. I would certainly think so.
The Dark Knight Rises got a nomination for its visual effects, but when you compare...
And that's funny, in comparison, to compare one to the other, is Dark Knight Rises was good, but this so surpasses that.
It really does. It really does, to no end. And, of course, one of the things that might be on a lot of people's minds, since we had said earlier that there is going to be a sequel. Some of y'all are probably wondering, well, how exactly are they going to approach that? And there's a scene in the movie. I really shouldn't go into details with this, but I'm just going to share my theory. I don't think it's really giving away too much. I'm going to give a little spoiler alert. For those of you that don't want to hear the spoiler, you can just jump ahead a little bit. For those of you that would like to hear this spoiler, then just go ahead and enjoy. But there's a scene in the movie where Superman is fighting Zod. And we see that there is a LexCorp plug. That's the only hint I'm going to give you guys. Okay? The name Lex Luthor does make an appearance in this movie, and that suggests to me that that will be the proper backdrop for the sequel. I won't go any more into details than that. I know me and Tammy were talking about it, and she kind of liked the way I was pitching how they could probably go about the sequel. But once you see the way this movie wraps up, I think you'll be in agreement that without a doubt the seeds have been planted for Lex Luthor to appear in the next movie. Now, as far as if Lex Luthor needs to be that main focal point, that I'm not really sure. I think, if anything, if we're going to do a sequel where Superman and Luthor are dominating for 2+ hours, which, mind you, this Man of Steel movie is 2 hours and 25 minutes, but it's one hell of a ride. I can't help but say, would a Lex Luthor Superman keep the fans' attention for a 2+ hour movie? And I think the answer to that would be no. I think they're going to have to introduce maybe another super powerful being in the movie. I think that they've planted proper seeds to possibly go the Doomsday route. They could even maybe go the Brainiac route, as I kind of picked up a little bit of traces of that in this movie as well. So there is a little bit of a supporting cast for that next movie. But if I were to recommend who they should look at as far as Lex Luthor goes, I know some people thought Kevin Spacey did a good job. I've got to go with Bryan Cranston from Breaking Bad. And not just because of the whole bald head look. I just think that he is one hell of an actor. And I think if you just have him ditch that goatee from Breaking Bad. I think he could be one compelling arch nemesis to Henry Cavill, Superman. And let's talk about Henry Cavill. We got to make sure we give him enough props. And Tammy, I definitely want to give you the green light on this one. What did you think of his portrayal as Superman compared to the previous Superman?
Well, for certain, the look that he has in certain shots, he certainly reminds you of the throwback to Christopher Reeve, and that's, what an amazing thing to be able to do, because he was such an awesome character representation. So, as far as the Superman in Man of Steel, wow, he really nailed it. He nailed it. Then that's all you really need to say to a point, because he's, looks wise, acting, you believed he was Superman.
Yeah, you definitely believed he was Superman, and that man worked out for that role. I mean, you could tell that boy had some wide shoulders, some nice triceps, nice biceps. That man was toned up. For those of you that are used to the whole padded suit thing going on, in this one, it looks like the suit is very, very thin. This was pretty much about Henry Cavill showing off the physique in the suit, and it was his physique 100%.
Yeah.
And, I hate to compare generations, but I definitely would have to give the edge more to Henry's portrayal of Superman. I thought he did a phenomenal job. I thought he surpassed Christopher Reeve, but I know this is probably going to be one that's going to be up for debate. I think just depending on who you talk to, there's probably going to be those that are going to continue to side with Christopher Reeve and say that there will never be a Superman like Christopher Reeve. There will never be a Clark Kent like Christopher Reeves. But I definitely feel that with all the people that we've seen portray Superman over the years, Christopher Reeves, the late George Reeves, who was the guy in Lois and Clark, New Adventures of Superman, Dean Cain, Tom Welling, even though he didn't put on the suit for 9-10 seasons of Smallville. You just add them all up. Brandon Roth, you just add them all up. For me personally, Henry Cavill, he's got the edge.
No doubt. And actually, to kind of touch on what you were saying, you are spanning the generations, but you also are looking at the argument, I should say, that you're not putting Christopher Reeves with today's technology. So you kind of have to weigh your, options there. But no doubt, and not taking anything away from Henry Cavill on his portrayal, because he really did a phenomenal job.
Gotta give props to the Nolan brothers and also to the producers as far as the casting goes. A lot of us were kind of under the impression they were going to go with a big name for the lead role. Far as I know, this guy is unknown.
He won't be after this movie.
I could be wrong. Maybe I haven't done enough research. Maybe he's done a few parts here and there. But, as far as I know, this guy, yeah, as you said, he's definitely going to be on a lot of people's radar after this. But scale of 1 to 10, I would definitely have to say that this movie is a 10. Yeah. I would definitely have to say, when comparing this to Iron Man 3, and I know we have a couple of more comic book movies that's left to come out this year, I gotta admit, it beats Iron Man.
Yeah. As far as certain effects and things like that, yeah, it does. But I happen to like Iron Man too. I'm sorry, as well, I should say.
Yeah. One thing for certain, this was not a boring Superman movie. When you think about the previous Superman movies, it kind of gets to that part where you're kind of like, is this almost over? I mean, come on, guys. Y'all can admit that every single Superman movie that's come out, even the ones under Reeve, well, for Reeve, I would say maybe around Superman, what was that, 3 with Richard Pryor? I couldn't wait for that to be over. Superman 4, what was that, Peace something, World of Peace or whatever. I thought that was a little yawn. First 2 I didn't have a problem with, but it seems like for every single Superman movie, it kind of gets to that point where it's kind of like, okay, the storyline's kind of dragging a little bit. It's kind of slow. It's kind of, can we kind of pick it up a little bit? From beginning to end, frame for frame, Man of Steel was on freaking point.
Oh, yeah. You certainly will not lose interest at any point in this movie. It has your attention from the moment you are starting the movie till the very end.
Once again, mad props to the Nolan brothers for giving us a unique spin on pretty much Superman 2 from Richard Donner, as Christopher Reeve Superman took on General Zod. This is basically what we're looking at. Let's be for real. The Nolan brothers, they handled the storyline right. They handled it in a way that was of biblical proportions. They kind of treated it as if, are we really alone? Did Jesus really exist? Did gods once exist? That's kind of the storyline that they kind of went with this, and I give them mad credit for that. But when you just take out the clever way that they reintroduce Superman to us, we're getting a remixed version of Superman 2. And quite honestly, I'm all fine for that, because it's the seeds that they've planted into the interpretation of the Superman origins this time around that no doubt will bring back in the old fans of those previous Superman movies and say, I like the way this is going on, especially visually. For those that remember the Reeves, for them, it's excitement.
Oh, yeah.
And for me, I'm in my 30s. I'm not going to say my exact age, but I'm in my 30s, and I went back to being that little small kid from the George Reeve Superman to the Christopher Reeve instantly as this movie was playing out. It's definitely a movie I would recommend you go check out with your friends, with your family. Heck, you can even take your kids to go see this one, assuming that they won't be a ruckus in the theater. This is definitely one that you want to check out.
Parents, you want to kind of look at the way the movie is going to go, and as far as the age limit, I mean, there is a little bit there, but obviously the judgment is yours. So
yeah, definitely. But scale of 1 to 10, definitely Superman Man of Steel a 10, must see. Definitely a must own when it comes out on DVD. This is one of those type of movies you will want to go back to the kiosk, get another ticket for another time. You're going to want to see this at least 3-4 times. That's just how damn good it is. And that is our review of the new Man of Steel movie, now in theaters. I definitely want to thank the beautiful and lovely Tammy for helping me do this review of Superman. And a special shout out to Blog Talk Radio, who's going to be featuring this weekend edition episode of our Superman review and WWE Payback. And for you wrestling fans, as you know, we have the one and only, the former WWE champion, CM Punk, longest reigning champion for 470 days, and that's consecutive days at that, will be making his return in Chicago this Sunday to take on Chris Jericho. It's the first time that CM Punk is going to be getting back inside the square circle since his loss to The Undertaker at this past year's WrestleMania. For those of you that are going to be checking out that pay-per-view, we got a little bit of a special treat for you as we're getting ready to take a commercial break. But when we come right back, we're actually going to preview Payback and offer match predictions for Sunday's pay-per-view. So make sure you stick around and check it out. You're listening to the weekend edition of the RCWR show. We'll be coming right back.